blustery Liverpool day in my hometown to meet with an NFT giant. We are meeting with Amir, who's also known as Mondor, and we're here at NFT Liverpool, which is where it's all going to be happening in April. Let's jump inside and say hello to Amir before I get blown away. Hello, hello! Hello! It's good to see you! Thanks for having us. Thank you. Welcome to your new favorite multi-platform talk show, where we will get to know the non-fungible humans that are shaping the NFT community. We'll be getting personal with your favorite artists, community leaders, and changemakers that are building Web3. This is NFT and Coffee. Well, hi and welcome. My name is Rachel Wilkins. I am very privileged today to be sitting down with an NFT giant, a collector, a builder, an advocate, and a champion for NFT artists around the world. I'm joined by the amazing Amir Soleimani, aka Mondor. Welcome, it's great to sit down with you.
Thank you very much, it's a pleasure to be with you. Thanks for having me.
I'm saying welcome, we're sitting in your space. But first of all, thank you for taking time out. Weekends are, of course, family time. You are a father, you are also a husband, so I appreciate you taking some time out to actually sit down and have a conversation with me.
Sure.
So, we're going to go a little back. I'm going to talk about how you got into NFTs, but I'd love to just share a little bit about where we are right now, geographically, not just in the metaverse, and tell me how we came to be in this location.
Okay, so my gallery is in the Liverpool High Street. High Street is far from city centre. It's not in the city centre of Liverpool, and it's not in the best area of Liverpool, but that's the whole purpose. Like, I didn't want to go to city centre because I'm not gonna continue what others were built in the city centre. I'm gonna create something from scratch, and I'm gonna lift up the area, Web3 area, with this gallery, as I do in NFT space. I lift up artists and try to discover new talents. That's what I'm doing in the world as well.
So for those who don't know, Amir, you probably have been under a rock in the NFT space if you don't know who this gentleman is. But Amir has over 3,000 pieces of work by artists, by photographers, one of the largest, most prominent collections in the NFT space. You have been very intentional with your collection. Can you maybe talk to us about some of the work that is particularly special to you, and perhaps some of the surprises that you've had with artists that have maybe been relatively unknown, but you've seen some potential?
There are many pieces that are exceptional for me, and they have particular value in terms of both historical value of in NFT space, and also some pieces that they are from artists that were somehow unknown or less known, and now they are really, really well known. A piece like the Genesis drop of Time magazine. So, at the time that I bought those 3 pieces of Time magazine, no one knew that Time magazine would lead this space in institutional point of view in the NFT space, and we had a little bit of bad experience with institutions as well at the time. The reason that I've got into, I decided to buy Time pieces was that I loved Time brand. Way before NFT space, I always were collecting Time magazine covers, and seeing them coming into NFT space was really interesting for me. So those are like part of the history, because as we can see now, Time is leading in space. So I'm so privileged and honored to have those pieces in my collection. There are many, many pieces in my collection that they are amazing. Like, I bought the first drop of Pussy Riot. She, as an activist, she just wanted to help all those activists in Russia, also women under suppression, in politically, and also social issues. in Russia and around the world, so I was able to help her. Paris Hilton, perhaps one of the most expensive pieces of a female artist. So that was a statement on not all male artists should sell high, right? So we can actually, it's up to us to give value to female artists as well. So that was a statement I wanted to make. Oh God, I mean, I have a lot of pieces, like, there is this artist that I love, I absolutely love, Carlos. He goes with Magalichako, if I said it correctly. I know it's really hard. I love his works. I absolutely love his works. Like Raf Graffiti, I mean, I have some of his Genesis pieces. Fiocious, everyone knows how amazing this guy is, how amazing this young gentleman is. And I just love his works, and I've been lucky to be able to collect it. DK is, I mean, he was working as an animator for many years for different brands, like Apple and different institutions. And with the NFT space, his work started to be appreciated. So I was lucky enough to get some of the best pieces of DK. Who else? I mean, oh God, there are tons of artists that I love. Like BT, one of the greatest musicians ever. He's award nominee and everything. He's fantastic. He gifted me 2 pieces that still to this day, when I look at them, just they created 2 pieces with AI for me. So that's, I mean, I cannot even express myself how appreciative I am that BT did that for me. Created pieces. BT's works are like spectacular, fantastic. So he created pieces for me. Like, the one thing that I want to say is that, of course, as you know, and we might later on touch on to that, all of these package comes from Jin, right? None of this would have happened. None of it. None. If Jin went there, Clubhouse in those early days, connecting all of us together. All of these artists, like Keith Grossman, when Jin introduced me and Keith together, he was the person that called me and said, we are having a party for Time Drop. He was like behind each and every of those projects that I participated with, and without Jin, none of these would have happened, like Kusurai, Jin. All these connections that I have, Jin. I'm sure that there are plenty of pieces that I basically forgot because there are too many, and artists that I dearly love, like Ryan Sankiewicz. This guy is the best ever human being ever, period, right? I have one of his early pieces, collaboration with Jay Silva, and that piece is amazing. So there are many pieces that so these pieces that I have collected are like my babies. Each and every one of them have a story. I know the story behind them, why I bought. If you point to a particular work in my collection, I can tell you that, okay, I bought that because of this story. And the reason that I love that work is that, right? I know everything about the works that I bought. I know everything about these stories, and I know why I bought them. Sorry, I stopped.
No, it's amazing to hear the passion, because obviously following you in this space and seeing how much you support this community, you know, from via social media is one thing, but to hear and see the passion that you have for this community in person is it's a whole other experience. You know, one of the things that has really struck me throughout this entire experience, and I feel very much around the surface of this movement, because it is a movement, let's be real, is that how much support there is from within. Like this concept of, you know, ships rise together, like we're in this together, we're a community. Do you think that that was because of apps like Clubhouse, and because we were in this moment of pause during the pandemic where we were all really craving something and missing that human interaction? Like, what were those early days like on Clubhouse before things really took off?
I was telling that to in most of my rooms and spaces that we all are here because of COVID. And yet again, the same reason took away some of us who were building blocks of this space, like Gene, right? Of course, the pandemic played a major role because everyone was at home, and the boom of NFT space actually caused by the pandemic. But in terms of the space helping each other, there are arguments there, right? Despite the fact that we say we are going to be together, that's the slogan of the NFT space, but in reality there are dark sides into NFTs as well. There are people that are taking advantages of people. They are influencers who are pumping those not very good projects or tokens. The reason that these days I try to educate people and tell people that you need to educate yourself is the mere concept of decentralization. What it means is that each and every one of us is responsible to make sure that we are safe. We know what to do, we know what we buy, and we know where to invest. We are, the whole concept of financial decentralization or decentralized finance is you're your bank. So if you're going to be your own bank, it means that not only you need to make sure that your security is there, you need to make sure where to spend, how to spend, or who to trust or who not to trust. These are our own responsibilities, because Web 2 mindset says financial institutions are managing your money. Right? You cannot come to the Web 3 space with that mindset. No one's going to take care of you. Even the community cannot take care of you. Right? You need to educate yourself. This is the spirit of decentralized space. Each and every one of us is responsible for what we do. This is an open space. It's open to everyone. It's inclusive. Fraudsters can use this space. You cannot prevent them from using this space. It's decentralized, right? Everyone can use it. So the only way to stay safe is if we educate ourselves. I cannot educate others. It's impossible, as long as they are driven by greed, right?
Yeah.
It's a long way. We all gonna win.
Why me? We're all gonna make it, right?
It's there,
right?
But in reality, no. Unless we educate ourselves, unless we ourselves try to safeguard ourselves. Otherwise, no way.
I feel like we're seeing a lot more attention to safety, security, mental health as well, because I think there are certain folks that are coming into this space and they're only seeing the success, and they're also seeing the speed at which somewhat relatively normal people have come into this space and experienced extreme wealth very quickly. But like you said, with the decentralization comes a massive space for bad actors to come in. Cash grabs, pump and dump, all of these expressions that you hear. But there's also something to be said about some of the big tech services, some of the software companies, and how they've been acting in this space. I don't know how much you want to talk about it. I'm not sure if it's still an active lawsuit, but you had your own experience with Nifty Gateway. Are you able to share a little bit about that? Obviously, my lawyer here said you may not be able to talk about this, but...
Well, of course, not in details,
yes,
because it's still ongoing, but the only thing that I can say is, of course I've used Nifty Gateway. Of course I started with Nifty Gateway. Of course I've got some amazing works on Nifty Gateway. Of course it's not personal. I'm not in personal disagreements or fights with those people in Nifty Gateway, right? It's about the mindset, it's about wrongdoings, it's about if you're saying that I'm advocate of decentralized space and Web3, you cannot run all your business based on a centralized ideology, right? You cannot be a centralized entity. You cannot, I mean, the whole concept of Web3 and decentralization is that there's a famous saying, not your keys, not your art, right? If I cannot have my keys, it's not my art. And what they're doing, they're acting as custody for your artwork. So you don't own your artwork there. And they can do whatever they want, right? I'm not gonna talk about the further down, but the whole reason behind it is, of course, none of us are longevity. We learn step by step. Of course, I've used Nifty Liverpool, I was happy with it. And then when I educated myself, I learned and I realized that something's not right in here, I started to talk about it. There are people in real world as well. I mean, there are people that we saw this in history. People stay quiet on variety of abuses. Either they don't understand that it's called abuse, they don't have any idea that there is the other way around it or the other way to do something, or they're afraid to talk, or because I experienced this firsthand, I come from Iran, I know when a group of people have financial benefits, how they prefer to stay quiet, right? I've experienced that firsthand in Iran. So, if people have incentives to stay quiet, they will stay quiet, right? But as an activist, I'm not going to stay quiet. If I see something's wrong, I talk about it. Even if the law says I'm wrong, right, which might say, we don't know that, it's ongoing. I learned something new, right? But at least I talk.
Yeah.
That's the whole purpose. I talk, I educate, and it's up to people to decide.
And you're passing that wisdom on.
Yeah.
And I think this community relies so much on influence. And I think that you rightly pointed out that there are quote-unquote influencers, people with a large amount of following, that are using their platforms in the wrong ways. I've noticed in the last kind of 6 to 8 weeks that there's been this move towards more accountability, move towards more ethical conversations around this, and conversations about doxing folks, bringing their public persona into the metaverse. When we have this kind of decentralized concept and all the benefits that come with that, what happens when we start to bring in these Web 2 ideas that really are about protecting people, right? They're about protecting human. Do you think there's a space where those things can come together and we can move forward in a way that protects more of these, especially the vulnerable artists that are coming into the space?
Well, to be honest, I don't see any results of these fights that I've seen recently, exposing wrongdoings. I mean, as I said, it's a decentralized space. They have the same rights as I have to use this space, right? It's decentralized. You cannot kill all the lions in jungle because they're eating other animals, right? It's for everyone.
It's a great analogy.
It's for everyone,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So they have the right to use it. It's another matter if they are doing it right or not, right? And I should educate myself to not be subject to the fraud. You know what I mean? So it's up to me to educate myself. It's not up to them to change. They can be whatever they want.
Right.
That's the whole purpose of decentralized space. It's decentralized. We cannot force our ideas to other people. It's decentralized. No central entity should be there. We shouldn't have leaders. I hate to call myself a leader. No thought leader, not community leader, I'm not a community leader, nothing. I'm a member of this community because when you refer to someone as a leader, it means that you're passing all the responsibility to them, and then later on you want to blame them. Right?
Yep.
This is what's happening with all those people because people call them leaders, thought leaders, community leaders, whatever. And then because of their wrongdoing or their lack of understanding and knowledge of what to do or what to do with their money, how to invest, who to trust, who not to trust, they are blaming those. right? So we should learn, first of all, we should not call anyone a leader. We don't need leaders in this space. Each and every one of us should be a leader for ourselves, right? We need to learn ourselves, we need to educate ourselves. And I don't see any point of like exposing this and that. No. I mean, I can write this down. 5 years down the line, if you expose all of these people, there is still going to be fraud, there's still going to be walkthroughs, there's still going to be, because as long as people are not learning, people are not educating themselves, it's going to happen, no matter what.
Right. And I think there's a temptation from people coming in, seeing kind of the hype, seeing that this is becoming a little bit more mainstream now, and thinking that there's a fast track to success. And those are the people that are going to fall by the wayside because they're not going to do their research, they're not going to educate themselves.
It's their issues, right? It's like the car is there, right? Either you can drive it, or you can't.
Right.
If you don't know how to drive this car and you start to drive, you might hurt yourself and others. And you will be responsible, not the car, right?
Yep.
No one takes the car into custody, you will be in custody because you're responsible. You've driven a car which you have no idea how to use it. This is a tool. The technology is a tool. And unless we learn how to use this decentralized machine, how to operate this decentralized machine, we're going to fail. That's the whole idea.
So take me back a little. Take me back to pre-NFT life. What did Amir's life look like before NFTs?
I was a husband, computer programmer, art collector, not art necessarily, collector. And I had a quiet life. I was sitting home, I was working from home. I was going, like, with my wife, we were going in different countries. I was enjoying a private life. I've been into technology for many years. I started working with computers in the 90s. At the time I was living in Iran, and it was the first time the internet came in Iran. So I was going around installing internet connection for people, setting up email addresses. I've been into this for many, many years. I've been into hardware, then I moved into software, different programming languages. I did a lot of project management in computers and programming. That's why I got into cryptos, because of the blockchain technology and everything. And suddenly, with the NFT, I'm in the middle of a lot of attention. But the funny thing is, I've experienced attention before. First of all, I'm tall. Right?
There's that.
I don't need to do anything.
Right.
I've been noticed everywhere. I don't need to do anything extra. The other thing is, excuse me, when I was in Iran, I was a basketball player. At some point, I was part of the national Iranian team. I was a really successful and famous basketball player, especially because of my height. I was a celebrity. Also, I was a celebrity. I was well respected in some sense in the area that I'd grown up, right? So I received lots of attention in my life, a lot of attention. So this attention that I'm receiving here, it's nothing compared to the one that I received, but again, it's a lot. For me, NFT space is more responsibility, right? I'm not bothered, I'm not enjoying that fame. If I have, before NFTs I had, I don't know, maybe 5 followers on Twitter, now I have 45,000, right? It's not about that. It's about the responsibility, because if people look at you, you need to make sure that even if you're not educating them, you need to make sure that you do the right thing if people look at what you've done and they decide to copy you. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you need to make sure that you are doing the right thing for yourself as an example. Because at the end of the day, I keep saying that people need to educate themselves, but it's not going to happen.
So let's talk about the fine art world. There's been a lot of resistance from the quote-unquote fine art world to NFTs, which we're starting to see kind of change as we see more artists become successful. But one of the things that the NFT space has really done it's given a platform and a stage and a voice to artists that would not necessarily have otherwise been celebrated by the institutions of the fine art world. One such artist is Fewocious. You recently hosted Fewocious' first and only UK solo show here. A phenomenal kind of hero story, a young trans gentleman from Las Vegas who really has risen to just humongous heights of stardom and is now estimated, his collection is estimated to be worth over $21 million. Tell us what you saw in Few that perhaps others didn't.
It's, sometimes it's difficult to ask even yourself why I understood this person, right? Why I felt that spark, why I felt that connection, even though that was the first time I was seeing Theo in real life, right? We never met before. When you hear this story of struggle, when you hear the story of people finding the courage to speak up against wrongdoings, right? Even if it's personal, it just resonates with me because I'm an activist and I've always encouraged everyone to talk, to speak. If you see something, speak about it, right? And when I saw Theo started to talk about, I mean, that was the first time on his Christie's auction when he opened up, right? He started to talk about that he's trans and he had all these issues back home, receiving no support from the family, and he was having a hard time. First thing that came to my mind was, I need to support him. No matter what, I need to support him because I'm going to help him to have his words being heard by more people. That was my initial decision, right? I need to support him. I've tried my best, and luckily enough, I was able to get the last lot number 5 on Christie's auction. We were all on Clubhouse and it was crazy. And then, so he came here, and it was funny. I was going to city centre, in Liverpool city centre, to meet Theo, and it was Theo, Ryan Tankiewicz, oh my god, I forgot his name. Sorry. So when I walked towards them, as I said, none of us had seen each other before. When I walked toward them, it took them a couple of seconds, and they saw, okay, someone is coming towards us, looks a little bit familiar, and is tall. Must be Amir, right? So it was really fun. But those things aside, I think Fewocious is one of the examples of how a decentralized space run by community can create a lot of change and can give you the courage to speak up. And this is all the purpose of the community. And you're right, NFT as a medium, that courage to Fewocious and that platform to Fewocious to be able to be seen, right? And what I can say is that the technology itself doesn't give you that platform as per se. It's the community around the NFT space, and that's the beauty of this technology, right? If we had no community around it, it would have been like any other technology, right? That's why I'm always saying NFT is part of Web3 cultural shift. It's a cultural revolution, it's a cultural shift. And this community aspect of it is the main reason that many of these institutions they want to tap into this community, because it's a great asset, right? It's a new market. And that's, again, is another reason that everyone needs to educate, everyone needs to make sure that they're safe and everything. But yeah, NFT space given many artists the voice, many artists. Fewocious Victor is perhaps one of the most famous ones, but I know many artists that this space given them the courage to speak, gave them the platform to be seen, and it changed many lives. many countless number of lives has been changed because of the NFT and the community around the NFT space. And I love Victor. This guy he's so lovely, he's so pure, he's so himself. And one thing that Victor has and make him very successful is that his story resonates with people. Many artists, I mean, I said that before, if you want to be an artist in all shapes and possible ways of being an artist. Don't be a painter, don't be a photographer, be an artist, like know how to tell a story, know how to act, right? These are all important. And Victor has all the characteristics of an artist, but mainly his story comes from within, comes from his heart. Right? That's why people just love this guy. Right? So that's the difference. Many artists, they only artists. They don't have the character, those being able to be a good storyteller, a good actor, a good all aspects. But some of them have this story that comes from within, that resonates with you, that you can feel it, you can touch it, and you can connect to it, you can see the story through Victor's eyes. When he talks, you can feel the pain, you can feel the joy, right? All these, when he was here and when he was speaking, just give me shivers. It was so beautiful because, as I said, it was an experience, a unique experience. I never had that experience before because, as I said, you could see the story when he was talking. You could see everything, all the pain, all the joy, all the downs, all the ups, and everything. And especially that suitcase that you wrote with yourself, those notes. Right? Oh my God! I've told him the fact that he was so vulnerable to share his stories. When he was writing those notes, he had no clue that one day he's going to share that with the world, right? With strangers, totally strangers. And the fact that he decided, okay, I'm going to do that at some point in life, right? I'm going to share part of my soul, part of my pain, part of my joy with others, with strangers. That's super valuable. Those notes, in my view, are more valuable than the arts because these are life, these are part of body of what creates Victor these days. Like, it's like I have his hand, right? It's part of his body, it's part of his being. So these are like exceptionally valuable for me. Those notes are like priceless for me. And I mean, I just love Victor.
The images that I saw from that event, it looks like there wasn't a dry eye in the house. Like you were crying, Theo was crying, our Jedi was crying. And it just shows you like the power that art can have. And I think that over the last couple of decades, the art world has become clouded in just people, the 1% of the 1% buying the 1% of artists that come out of Yale and have that track record, that there hasn't been space for the real authentic storytellers. And I think it's so vital and important that you touched on artists as a storyteller. Because we've been storytellers for decades, right? As artists, as creatives, we were the people that were sharing, the world news before we had photographs, before we had print newspapers. And I think essentially artists that have that ability to tell meaningful stories and to be vulnerable are the ones that are really going to have that success. So as a collector, to know that you've had such a profound impact on somebody, to not only change their life financially, because we're not talking about small amounts of money here, but to give them the confidence to be able to be so vulnerable. How does that feel?
Well, of course, I just feel proud. it's not only me, it is the community, I think, that gave many artists this courage to liberate them from the pains or from the suppressions that we're experiencing. And we as a community did that, not only me, are only part of this community. And I think we're proud of ourselves, because every time that you hear another story, that another artist or another creator starts to be vulnerable and share the stories and just offload all the pain, all these heavy loads that just maybe prevents them from being more creative, you just feel so relieved and so humbled, so honored. I mean, it's a great feeling, right? And it's like you're responsible, or as a group, responsible for doing a charity. Like when you see some lives being changed, or you see a smile on a face that was sad for I don't know, many years, that feeling is so great. It's like seeing your, I don't know, your sick child coming out of bed or out of hospital, or just new life. Those feelings are very special and very, I mean, I hope that all other members of the community realize that they are having the same impact, and they are helping, as a whole conscious, we are helping all those artists. And I hope that other people start to realize that and start to enjoy, because that joy is what keeps me alive and young. Right? I'm not young, but like deep inside, I'm really young, because these joys, it just gives you a new sort of a breeze, new reason to live, and try your best to help more and more, because you're going to receive more and more. Yeah, it's fantastic. It's fantastic.
I'm glad you brought up age, because I'm not a spring chicken either. I'm considered probably pretty old in the NFT space. I'm 40. So, one of the things that is interesting is that the average collector is between 20 and 30. It's a very young market. But with, some of the changes that are coming, the likes of Coinbase bringing out a marketplace, the likes of being able to pay with fiat to buy an NFT, we are going to see probably a more mainstream shift in the demographic. How do you think that's going to impact the work that artists are actually creating? And are you excited about that, or are you trepidatious?
Of course I am. I mean, I'm 45, right? So people around my age are going to enter this space. Well, somehow it depends on if you're able, or if platforms are able, or we as a community are able to tell people in fine art space or outside the NFT what the NFT is, right? Because that's important. NFT is not crypto. NFT is not some weird digital being living on your computer, right? NFT is the medium to produce art, right? It's like a canvas. It's like, I don't know, like a piece of paper. So, as long as you understand that it's another medium, and it's another point in history of creating art. At some point, we were creating art on cave walls. At some point, we started to use animal skins. At some point, we started to create papers and draw on papers. Then it came canvas. Then it came digital screens, and now it's NFT. It's another medium, and it's not something crazy. I'm sure, I don't know, I'm not an art historian, but I'm sure at some point people were resistant on using papers because they were get used to animal skins.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's the same thing. If people are resistant because we as humans are resistant, because it's hard for us to change, to accept change. But eventually people will understand that it's another medium, and the arts will be like that from now on, especially because that's one of the arguments that, I don't know if it's in your questions or not, but like environmental impact.
Yes.
Production of a piece of art on canvas requires tremendous amount of work behind the scene,
Yeah.
right? From creating the inks that are being created, the paints, the brushes, the canvas itself, the wood, the waste, the transportation, the storage. All of these are creating, they need each of these aspects, they need a factory, right? And it produces tremendous amounts of waste, tremendous amounts of environmental impact. Versus in NFT, it's like the blockchain is like a train. It is moving, right? When we create NFT, we just hop on this train. We are not adding to the weight of this train. We are not adding to the environmental impact of it. It just is moving, right? We're just putting our work in these blocks, which are moving anyway, because it's blockchain, it's a live thing. And I believe that the environmental impact is way, way, way less. I mean, the number of computers that corporations are using is, I have arguments on that. But back to the point, NFTs are great. These are new medium. Finite people, those people who are resistant, will eventually understand that instead of building a mansion to house their large collection of artworks, they can store all of it in a small hardware drive, and they can show it on one single screen, rotate it and show it, and they don't need to be worried about temperatures, humidity, theft. You still need to be worried about it, but like it's
in a different capacity.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that really blew my mind, I actually met with Banksy right after he sold the large piece. And, you know, I was still kind of grappling with how this was, you know, I'm from a traditional art world background, still kind of grappling with how these would be experienced. Like, if I own an NFT, like, what do I do with it, right? At the time, I have some more evolved feelings about it now. And, you know, I said, how are we going to display these in our properties? And he said something which really blew my mind, and I'd love to get your take on this. He said, you're thinking about it all wrong, because his generation, the early 20s, they don't go to each other's homes. They spend time in the metaverse. They visit their, you know, quote unquote virtual homes and experience their virtual collections of NFTs in these fictitious virtual worlds. So the idea of an NFT sitting on your wall is very abstract compared to where they're coming from. As somebody who is, you know, of my generation, and somebody who is also bringing NFTs into physical spaces, we're going to talk about NFT Liverpool shortly, where do you sit on that kind of real world experience versus metaverse?
I think the best answer would be, as a father, I would not let my daughter or son to sit at home and just go into metaverse places to experience socialization. I would encourage them to go in real world, outside the real world, and experience things in real world. Because at the end of the day, if you spend a lot of time on that metaverse, on virtual world, it's going to create a lot of health issues for you, a lot of complications.
Physical and mental.
Right.
Yeah.
So I believe that even though people, I mean, that's going to be part of our life, it's not going to be our life, right? It's going to be part of our life. Like, we might have fun in metaverse. We can go there, visit our friends' museum or Martian house on metaverse. But real life and real world still is there, and we're going to interact with it in real world. I mean, when I'm sitting at my home, I love to look at my art, right? I cannot go to my computer or my metaverse home to look at my own art, you know?
Right.
So, digital displays are there. I can have one digital display at home and rotate through my art whichever I want. I want to display it on the digital display. Metaverses are there. Real world is there, but I'm old. I'm from old generation. I'm more into real world,
Yeah.
because I believe that it gives you a lot more happiness.
Yeah. To walk in a room and experience that
Yeah.
rotating collection as well.
Physical experience is more fun.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So you have an organization called NFT Guild. I love the quote that you said here on the Guild website says, "May all of us do our part in creating a better world for ourselves, others, and future generations." You know, a lot of what we're talking about here is really building a legacy. It's putting, you know, this digital archive together, not just for artists, but for communities, for builders, for collectors. What are your hopes and kind of aspirations with NFT Guild?
What I've done in the NFT space is there were not a single charity event that I was not part of. And because I believe that if you're talking about community, it means as a community we have responsibility as well. Not only about ourselves of education and everything, but to lift up others. And NFT gives us perfect platform to help others. In NFT Guild, I've tried to be an example for all those members in the NFT Guild as someone who is always there to help in charity works, in real world and in digital space. Before NFTs, I was a volunteer in refugee action in the UK. I was trying to help refugees. Back in Iran, I was doing a lot in the south of Iran where people are more disadvantaged there. I've tried my best. Also animals, I mean, whatever I could, right? I'm always trying to help. So in NFT Guild, I'm trying to be an example for people, and those people are actually helping as well. So members of the NFT Guild are trying to set an example of how to use technologies, mainly NFTs, to give back to people. There are many websites that are accepting cryptos. We are introducing those websites to people, and we can donate into cryptocurrency to different causes, to different charities. And not only that, even helping an unknown artist should be seen, it's an act of charity, because you're helping them, right? You don't ask for money in return, right? Even the show that I'm hosting in here, the Nft Liverpool, I'm not receiving a penny from anyone, right? I'm spending a lot of money during these 3+ months. Even the sponsors are non-paid because I just love them and we are friends with each other. So it's an act of charity because I'm helping a lot of artists and I'm giving them a lot of exposure. So anything that you could do to help is an act of charity, and you don't receive money in return, of course. And many of the NFT Guild members are part of this mission. And what I'm trying to say is use your status, use your power to help others. That's the motto. It would be trust.
So let's talk about NFT Liverpool. This is an incredibly exciting event that you have coming up in April. Tell us what your motivation was, what you're most excited about, and then we're going to actually get a quick look at the space so folks can see what's coming up.
Sure. And as a collector, what I've noticed was that it's really hard for unknown artists to be seen. If you don't have a community, especially if you're an introvert and you struggle to communicate with people or come into social places or social media and create connections, there is a less chance for your work to be seen, especially by collectors or anyone that appreciates art. I had to come up with an idea, with something, because that's what I do, to help. I was thinking to myself, okay, I have this art gallery, this huge space that mainly is being used for my personal pleasure. No business coming out of this place, right? So how about I use that to help artists? So I put the word out, I said, I want to have an exhibition on my gallery. And people were really receptive, they liked the idea. And I was thinking to myself, I said, how about, instead of 1 or 2 or 3 days, I add to the days and I show 1,500 artworks instead of 100. Again, I put the word out, and people would like them. And I was thinking to myself, how about now I create a new meaning for curators? How? In fine art space, a curator is a very conservative, mainly conservative person with a strict view who curates. I said, maybe we can change that in NFT space or in digital art. So I selected different people with different backgrounds. Keith Grossman, president of China, obviously the curator. Pat, he's an artist, perfect artist. I love him or her or they. He's never been a curator. Farouk Samad, perfect community leader, never been a curator. Paris Hilton, she did a little bit of curation, but never been a curator. Many, many other people. And also I'm having Joe Kennedy, owner of Unit London, a perfect person to be a curator. We have Nicole, she is a curator. I have artists in the team to be a curator, I have collectors. So I said, let's see what curation means, because we're going to rate, we're going to grade these shows. And let's see who's going to come up first at the end of the day. Is it going to be Keith Grossman, the president at the time, he selected best works? We don't know. Is it going to be Joe Kennedy as one of the persons deep into fine art space? We don't know, right? So the whole idea of NFT Liverpool is to have curators that each of them, one of the criteria that they chose curators was that they needed to have a community around themselves and they needed to have a voice. Why? Because then they could help those artists that they select. Right? They can get behind them, they can promote them. Right? So the whole idea is having 20 plus curators. I'm actually in talk with Gary Vee. He said, send me an email, and he hasn't responded yet. So Gary, if you're listening to this, I said,
come on, Gary, make it happen.
So these people will use their power to discover new talents and help them grow, right? That's never done before. Even in all the NFT shows that we've seen, ours are being curated mainly from known artists because they need to have killer artworks to be able to get killer sponsors. I'm not bothered about that. My sponsors are my friends, timepieces. I love Keith Grossman, and he's so kind to be our sponsor partner. He's going to help us to create more awareness. Rock Radio Farouk, one of my good friends. And actually the person who, without Farouk and Paolo and Jean and Nicole, I would have been nothing, right? No one knew that there is, but Farouk called me Mondor, a French thing that says, I said, okay, Mondor, whatever. So Farouk Rock Radio, these are not paying, like Beyond, Nicole Bernard, Nft Guild, myself, Adelia Gallery here. We're gonna have some other sponsors that I'm not allowed to name yet, but like none of them are paying. It's all about community work. Those people, those sponsors are putting their name behind these artists, right? Curators putting their name behind the artists. I'm putting my physical gallery behind these artists, and I'm spending a lot, as you would appreciate, running the exhibition for 3 months. Not only the running costs, the screens, the PR, everything, right? So we are a bunch of crazy people trying to give back to this community, trying to lift up, discover new artists, and present them to the world. This is the whole idea behind it today.
Well, I am just thrilled and excited by what you're doing here. I think that shifting these old world concepts of what an art show even is just an incredibly bold move. And I think it makes the entry point into art world success so much more obtainable and so much more possible for your average artist who doesn't have the financial support, doesn't have the the connections, doesn't have the Yale degree, and it is just going to democratize the art world as we know it. So, Amir, thank you for sitting down with me. Thank you for giving me your time, and I am just thrilled, and congratulations.
Thank you very much for having me. It's an honor and it's a pleasure.